What's up, everybody? My name is Michael Stephenson. Welcome to my channel. These are my entertainment series videos. If you've been watching my channel, thank you. You know the spiel. If not, I'll ask that you please go back and watch some of my early videos. Some of my earlier videos, I'm basically trying to bank up a sort of lingo or language here on the channel so that we can have a bit of a shorthand for like discussion down below and comments and whatnot, so that you can know exactly what I'm talking about, so that later videos, they can be a lot shorter. Wow. Listen, you read the title of the video and you might be thinking a certain thing, mainly because I know that unfortunately this space of movie criticism and calling movies or calling the entertainment industry out right now is being very politicized, and there are a lot of seemingly far right-wing commentators. You know, they scream about wokeness or LGBTQ agenda, or women being in films and blah blah blah, all this stuff. And I am not that, so I know that some of you probably read the title to the videos and you probably thinking Silent Perverts, and he's talking about Hollywood. Oh, he's talking about like all the weirdos in Hollywood and all the nasty stuff that they do. And no, listen, don't get me wrong. I mentioned a little bit of that in one of my previous videos. You can check that one out. It's on the future of child acting. I want to say it's somewhere in the episode 20 range, somewhere in there. So you can check that out. And yes, I will probably be doing a few more videos later in the future, talking about some of the seedy underbelly of Hollywood, and how some Hollywood elites like Harvey Weinsteins and whatnot get down, and how we can cut that out. But that is not what these videos are about. These Silent Pervert videos are specifically about how Hollywood, and I guess to a larger extent, we consumers, how we view ourselves, especially as adults, and what we think is mature and adult. Okay, so you already saw the introduction that I did for all three of these Silent Pervert videos. This is part two. In this one, we're going to talk about nudity. So, number one, let me say this. I will probably intercut a little bit of this video with the videos that I made last year in 2023, just because I might miss some of the things that I wanted to mention or talk about. Just bear with me. It might get a little choppy and it might look a little strange. But with that said, going back to 2023, one of the reasons that I actually was not pushed to, but inspired to talk about this subject is because of something that happened at HBO. Now, first, let me also say this. I am not a prude, and right after I do the HBO show thing, refer back to that, I'm going to tell you guys a funny story from my own youth, okay? And I'm sure that there's a lot of dudes watching my channel, so you guys can probably relate to this in some ways. And yeah, it was dumb, but again, I was very, very young. So anyways, back to HBO. Last year, I also started a TikTok channel. On my TikTok, I mentioned something that was incredibly odd, but also intriguing to me going forward in the future. And I was talking about an HBO show, and that HBO show, as most of you probably know, is The Last of Us. And I mentioned how it was interesting to me that HBO had one of the biggest hits that it is, really one of the biggest hits for a first season show pretty much ever, but it's had one of the biggest hits that it has had since the original Game of Thrones was on TV in The Last of Us. I think that at the end of the first season, it was something like 8, 9, maybe even 10 million individualized viewers to like just that one finale episode. So they got a lot of people to watch that show. And one of the most intriguing things to me about that was that they went through the majority of the show with pretty much no sexual content and almost zero nudity. And I was like, it amazed me how for an HBO show, just for an HBO show alone, it amazed me how they were able to do that and get one of their biggest hits. But then on top of that, you consider it for a prestige show in the time of, whether you want to call this peak TV or whether this is still the golden era of television, for a prestige show that airs on a streaming service or at least a premium cable channel, to not have any kind of nudity, at least not any kind of nudity in a sexual manner. They did show a nude body of a woman who was being autopsied, I believe, or it might have been a man. I don't know. I can't remember it. And again, it didn't stick out to me because it really didn't feel like the kind of nudity that you would expect from an HBO show. But it amazed me at how rare that was, because when you look back at HBO's history, almost every single show that they've ever had has had an amazingly large amount, or not large, but a lot of nudity, essentially. And I was intrigued by that, because I was like, wow, they had one of their biggest hits without that. I wonder how, or if that, I wonder how that sat with HBO, and if any of the executives even noticed that. And I think I want to even say that they kind of had not as much cursing either. I'll have to go back and watch my own TikToks, watch my own videos to see if I mentioned that or not. But just sticking with the nudity, listen, I know, again, some of you far right wingers, because I'm sure you'll watch these videos, you'll probably call out oh, well, what about the two dudes? That wasn't sexual content. It wasn't. I'm sorry. You can try to say that it was, but you saw nothing. They did nothing. You didn't even see like a thrust or anything like that. You just didn't. So as far as and you barely saw them kiss like a handful of times, I think. So that was tame. That was tame compared to even stuff that you may see on broadcast television. You saw stuff that was more like salacious than that. And, broadcast can't show anything. But so anyways, yeah, they had almost no sexual content and almost no nudity at all. And I was like, that's kind of amazing. Then I also read an article, and on top of that, I also watched a opening monologue by Jimmy Kimmel. And he was mentioning the same thing. He was mentioning how Gen Z apparently does not want to see as many sex scenes on TV or in film anymore. They don't want to see sex scenes in their entertainment anymore. And I was like, okay, that is also very intriguing. Yeah, that's very intriguing. And this, of course, is when the generational thing is going to come in a little bit too, because, well, first off, I guess I should back up and tell you guys my own story. The fact that they had cut down a lot of the sexual content in The Last of Us, seemingly had none, and then they also had pretty much no nudity, and they still were able to have a hit show on HBO. That fascinated me, because I was intrigued on whether or not that could be the future, and whether we could see more HBO shows, weirdly enough, like that are still geared toward and made for a mature audience. And don't be fooled, The Last of Us was definitely made for a mature audience. I'm talking about people over 21 years of age. And of course, yes, it was a video game, but it was still made for people who were slightly older. Going back to my own story, when I was 7 years old, I was hanging around older cousins, and most of my cousins are male. I think I've mentioned that in a video before. Guys, y'all know how we like to corrupt each other. And so I was shown my first pornographic image, my first nude woman at 7 years old by my cousins. And from then on, I got addicted to, nude women. They are, nude women are, there's something. I don't know if you've seen a nude woman, but oh boy, they are quite something. But, being that young and being exposed to that kind of material, obviously it can rot your brain and it can do all sorts of bad things. I've since overcome my addiction. But I remember back then, this, mind you, of course, was long, years before I even went through any kind of puberty. Years before that, I was already addicted to it. And no, it like I said, because I hadn't gone through puberty yet, no, I was not, let's say, doing things to myself when it concerned the images. That wasn't my fascination about it. I guess it was just, I was fascinated with the fact that I could see another gender naked, and I don't know, I just really appreciated the things that I saw. let's just say that. But what happened is that I became so addicted to it that this is, back in the day, my grandparents would pick me up after school, and I would spend a couple of hours over their house after school and before my mom came to pick me up from work. Now, this was sort of what almost everybody in the family did. It was routine for my other cousins, at least 3 of my other cousins, or 4 of my other cousins, frankly, to end up at grandma's house after school. And, we sort of congregate over there and all that stuff. So yeah, I was raised in sort of tight-knit family like that. Well, my grandparents, grandma and Poppy, that's what I call them, they had cable over their house. Well, my mom, since she was a baby boomer and since she grew up in a time in which TV was always free, she never wanted to get cable. She never wanted to pay for cable. And of course, she ended up paying for cable when she got the new house and had to move and all that stuff. But when I was really young, didn't have cable at the house. So I had to load up on watching cable and watching like movies and stuff over my grandpa and Poppy's house. And they had HBO. And naturally, HBO had some movies on there, which at a certain point of the day, they were like, okay, we're going to switch from playing PG-13 or PG or G-rated movies to we're going to play R-rated movies. We're going to play mature audience only TV shows, etc., etc. And we're going to show some adult content, some mature, quote unquote, content in them. Well, my thing is that I was so enamored by the idea of nudity, of nude women, that I wanted to see pretty much as much of it as I could. And my plan for this was to start recording, and this is still back when videotape was the thing. My plan was to record movies, and I knew to where you could set it up to where you could record on a VHS tape even when you weren't around, so like you could schedule a recording. My plan was to record things onto videotape that I was not allowed to see. So I would look through the TV guide and I would just look at the movies, and the movies would tell you not only the rating, but they would tell you like what the movie contained, why it was rated R, or why a TV show was rated MA. And so I kept looking for that N or that BN, and everything that had a nudity or brief nudity in it, I was like, I gotta record it. I gotta tape it. I've got to tape it. And so I did. I taped it, and I wanted to take that tape basically back home. But what happened is that I couldn't figure out a way to get the tape back home. So before I could figure out a way to get the tape back home, and I think it was mainly because, I wanted to show my friends, my buddies on the street, my next door neighbor, Doug, he was like my best friend at the time. I needed to find a place to hide it over my grandma's house. And so they had a box set TV that was from like, I want to say the 60s or 70s, and it sat on the floor. But it sat on the floor in front of a fireplace, which I don't think they ever used because I feel like the fireplace was actually fake. So the TV sat in front of the fireplace. It covered it completely. So what would happen is that sometimes I would drag that TV out of the way just so I could get to the fireplace. And then I would put things into the fireplace to hide them. And so I hid the tape in there. And I was like, yes, this is a great hiding space because they're never going to look here, right? My stupid young mind, in order to make sure that I didn't hide the tape from myself and lose it from me, I labeled the tape, literally, wait for it, the nudity tape. Again, I was under the age. I was under the age of 11. Okay, it was not like I was at my peak creativity yet. I wasn't even writing yet. I started writing when I turned 11 because puberty kind of hit me a little bit early, and I had this explosion of creativity, and I really started sort of taking this whole idea of being in Hollywood and all this stuff seriously. But before then, I was just like, yeah, this would be fine as the name of a tape, the nudity tape. And of course, my grandparents found it. And, I tried to play it off. I lied, as a child would when they're in trouble, and fearing punishment. I don't know what's on that tape, blah, blah, blah. I don't know but my handwriting is so poor that it's like anybody could tell that I had written it and all that stuff. So naturally I got in trouble. But I tell that story to say this. Again, I am not in any way, shape, or form approved. And if you think that somehow I would be approved now, knowing what I've gone through, again, just go back and go onto my Amazon page. There are links down below in the description box. Go onto my Amazon page and just read the first 3 episodes of The Writer, or you can also read the first couple episodes of Extraordinary. You might like that one. It's more like sci-fi stuff. So it's got aliens in it and all that stuff. Just check one of those out. And it's not a big commitment. Each episode costs just $1. Just $1, and you get 60 pages of interesting reading. And you can buy the rest of the series if you want to or not. But I am not a prude. I'm not against cursing. I'm not against nudity. I'm not against any of this stuff that I'm talking about. But I do find it that we have essentially gotten to a fairly troublesome place when it comes to nudity on screen. So first off, let me say this. This, I believe, is a very generational thing. And that's why I brought up the Gen Z thing. If you guys know anything about history, about television history or film history, what you'll know or realize is that in the span of less than 70 years, we have gone from a society in which we were so, I don't know if conservative is the right word in this instance. I guess we were so gun shy or sex shy. And again, this is part of the cycle. We were so gun shy that we didn't even want to show a married couple in the same bed on television because TV producers and the stations, they worried about what that might imply. The married couple, again, these people were married, they were worried about what that might imply the married couple is doing or has done. So if you watch really old shows, like I think Dick Van Dyke had it, you might see the husband and the wife in 2 separate beds, living like right together, as almost as if they're like 2 brothers or a brother and a sister sharing a room as they grow up. It was very strange. We went from that to, in just one generation, and that was like 50s era stuff, like 40s and 50s era type television. We went from that to really just in one generation or 1 or 2 generations to having stars show their breast or show their entire frontal nudity pretty quickly. It almost felt like it occurred overnight. And the reason why that happened is because, as I've explained in my generational cycle videos, baby boomers started to realize that the world that they had lived in, that they were growing up in as children, was not entirely real, that there was a certain level of fakeness. So they started to want to suss out fakeness. And in order to suss out fakeness, they started to rebel against their parents. Now, again, let me be very clear about this. No, history is not filled with conservatism. Again, this is a cycle. We go through these cycles of thought processes in which we feel as if we need to be more conservative. And let me be very clear, the conservatism that you hear of or that you hear people talk about today when they call themselves conservatives, that is not real conservatism. Let me be very clear on that. I know some of you are going to try and call me out and curse me out about that. It ain't real conservatism. It's not. Period. Point blank. It is not. The far right and all that stuff, and we'll get to the political videos later, but that is not real conservatism. That just rails against whatever it can rail against to get clicks, to get views, essentially. It's a grift. I hate to say that, but it is. But we go through these cycles of doing that, right? And because you look back like 1 or 2 generations before the traditionalists, and you had the flapper girls, you had the roaring 20s, there were tons of people who were doing drugs, who were drinking, who were having tons of sex. Again, all of that stuff is covered in F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby novel. That he wrote about what he was actually seeing. And of course, it looks like he was writing about today because cycles. So baby boomers saw that the traditionalists were like, traditionalists seem to be afraid of sex. And they were the people who started what was supposedly the sexual revolution. Let me be very clear about this. There was never really a sexual revolution. Everything that people have been doing or that have, every sort of sexual idea that you can think about today, people have been doing for years and years and years. Again, that's the 400 rule that I mentioned in another video, where if you can't wrap your head around the idea that people have been having the same kind of sexual appetites, been doing the same sort of things sexually today as they were thousands of years ago, well, oh, that's not true. Yes, it is true. Yes, it is true. there was never really a sexual revolution. I'll tell you what the sexual revolution actually was. The sexual revolution really was only two things. One, it was the scientific breakthrough of the pill. That was a revolution. It is not that men and women were not having relations, as more Christians call it. It's not that they weren't having relations before marriage. They were. They were just risking a lot of other things. But again, you can go to various museums around the world that had like museums of sex, in which they will show you that previous generations previous eras did in fact have their own forms of contraceptive. So no, this idea of everybody was chaste, and if you had sex with her, you had to get married. That's BS. Stop listening to far right wing talking points. That's not real. It's not. But then on top of that, so not only did you have the pill, which that was supposed to revolutionize or just give another form of contraceptive to women, but then also you had the idea of way in which we talk about sex. So that was the real revolution, the actual sexual revolution that happened. Suddenly, it became okay and even highly acceptable to talk openly and honestly about sex in public. We hadn't done that before. Before, sex essentially was talked about in private, quiet, hushed tones. You didn't talk about it even in large groups. Like, you just didn't do that. Now it's like you look around, you can look even here on YouTube, and you can probably find what's that dude's name, Vlad, or like Vlad TV, or the other dude, Adam 22. They have people on their channels and whatnot all the time, women, men, that talk openly and honestly about sex. They'll talk about the different types of fetishes and things of that nature that they enjoy, etc., etc. That was what the actual sexual revolution brought in for pretty much all of us. Do I like that? Not necessarily. I'm gonna keep it real with you. I would prefer if people didn't talk about their bedroom exploits as much as they do. I hate that, in fact. But that was pretty much what happened. And so the film and television, the entertainment industry, kept up with that by essentially making everything be far more unadulterated, let's say. So suddenly, where in the 40s and 50s, women had to essentially stay sort of chaste, and they had to put out that kind of vibe. Once the 60s came around, that was sort of out of the window. And especially once the summer of love, 69 came around, pretty much everybody was like, yeah, no, sex has got to be open, it's got to be out, it's got to be free, etc., etc. And that's how we got what we have now. So what is it exactly do we seem to have now? Well, I'll give you another reason as to why I was influenced to talk about this particular topic last year, and am still influenced to talk about it this year. So there was a particular young starlet, or star celebrity, really. She is on the show which shall not be named. Pretty girl, I guess, mid-20s, I believe. Anyways, she was about a year and a half ago. She was up for, or excuse me, no, she starred on another show, which was like a limited series. And that show was like, it was an Emmy darling. So there were a lot of people getting Emmys around her. A lot of people were nominated, etc., etc. And so, they talked to her, like the reporters and whatnot, they talked to her. Now, I can't remember if she was nominated or not, but I know that she didn't win. And they talked to her, and she basically came out and said pretty much one of the dumbest comments that I've ever, or at least one of the dumbest comments that I've heard a star or celebrity make about Hollywood, okay? Not about politics, just about the ecosystem of Hollywood. One of the dumbest comments that I've heard a celebrity say in at least a decade. She said, and I'm paraphrasing here, she said that, well, I think the reason why I'm not winning, or maybe even being nominated, is because I don't think they, meaning Hollywood, I don't think they like that I get nude all the time. And she had been nude in like a couple of roles that she had done. Again, she's 20-something, but she was a child actor back in the day. And I was just, what? No, no, it was so dumb. Now, let me be very clear about this, and let me be very honest, because again, I'm not doing these videos to try to hurt anybody's feelings. That's why I am not the the shouty type. I'm not the critical drinker type, or ranty. I'm not like that. I'm trying to be soft and gentle to people to help to build back a better Hollywood. So I not only do I give her leniency because she's young, but then I also give her some leniency because I know that, again, as a fellow artist, as a fellow entertainer, listen, sometimes this is what we do. I've mentioned in my award season video, in one of them, I have one on here, there's another one coming, that look, yes, awards don't matter really anymore, but they also still kind of do matter. There's like a weird oxymoron going on there, weird juxtaposition. When you're up for one, it feels good. It feels good to be nominated. It feels good to be honored by your peers and by the people within your industry. So yes, it can hurt still to lose out on that nomination or to not be nominated at all, even when you think that you've done an excellent job, et cetera, et cetera. So I understand that she needed to coddle herself a little bit, make some excuses on why she didn't win. I understand that. So I'm not trying to take that away from her at all. But when you actually look at Hollywood, historically, at least for the last 30 or 30 plus years, you have to understand that it is quite literally the exact opposite of what she said. And in fact, it's almost like a rule that if you are a young, attractive woman in Hollywood, at some point in time, it's almost a rule that you almost have to appear either nude or you have to do some incredibly salacious sexual content in order to assure that you will at some point get an award. Like it almost has become somewhat of a rule. Listen, just look at the nominees, honestly, of the last, like I said, 30 plus years, going back just to 1990. You can go back even further, but going back just to 1990, look at the amount of nominees in both the Oscars and the Emmys for women. I would be shocked if you found less than, as a matter of fact, I would be shocked if you found even just 50% of those women have never appeared nude. I would be shocked if you found that. There are so many women who have been nominated or who have won either Emmys or Oscars, and they have almost always appeared nude. Sometimes they appear nude before winning a big award. Sometimes they appear nude after winning the big award. But it's almost across the board that at some point in their career they do it. It almost seems like it's a necessity, and I say that because of the fact that, again, this was ushered in by baby boomers, and Gen Xers kept it. Like baby boomers, Gen Xers, and millennials, we, for whatever reason, seem to love our gratuitous nude and sexual content a lot. Like, so the idea that she somehow would have ruined her chances to win an Emmy because she appears nude a lot or because she likes appearing nude is ridiculous on its face. Especially when just in the last, God, I don't even know how long ago that was, just in the last 8 years, let's say, you've had both Nicole Kidman and Kate Winslet, both of them won Emmys. Now, Kate Winslet didn't actually appear nude specifically on the show that she won for, Mayor of Easton. Yeah, Mayor of Easton. She didn't actually appear nude on that show, but Nicole Kidman did appear nude on Big Little Lies, and she still won the Emmy. Kate Winslet has appeared nude in, like, I don't know. It feels like she appears nude in almost every other movie that she's in, quite honestly. And she won the Emmy, and she's won Oscars. So has Nicole Kidman. Jessica Chastain, again, she won the Oscar the year that Will Smith did his slap. She's appeared nude. Jamie Lee Curtis, she's appeared nude. Again, there is very rarely a time, and there are also, not only that, but there are also other people who you may not have even thought would have appeared nude in their career, but they have appeared nude before. And it's just like Angela Bassett, she's appeared nude. It's just like almost any big time woman that we have in the industry, it almost seems in some ways like there's a backdoor deal to where they sign a contract that at some point in your career you are going to appear at least topless, if not do full frontal. You're going to appear at least topless so that we can all gawk at you. And this concerns me. This concerns me greatly. I remember just a few years ago, this was Elizabeth. God, I'm blanking on her last name. I apologize, y'all. But she was the I think she was the girlfriend in Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, and I don't know why I remember that reference out of all the things. I was gonna say that she's also she's currently the girlfriend of Obi-Wan Kenobi himself, and she appeared in that Star Wars Ahsoka series. She was the green chick. Man, I wish I could remember her name right now. She was also a child star or a child actor. I guess she wasn't as big of a star, but she was a child actor. And she did an interview a couple of years ago in which she was talking about how, yeah, she always grew up wanting to act. So when she finally got her first couple of real roles, it was amazing. And she was excited to start her career. And she's been excited to keep her career, to keep going as an actor. But she never considered that she would one day have to figure out how to be sexy to a whole bunch of like men. Like, she found it to be incredibly strange that as a child, she was already being groomed to, like, okay, yeah, you are a 13 or 14-year-old now, but just know that in a couple of years, you're going to have to figure out a way to be sexually appealing to every single man in the universe, or else you won't be able to have a career again. That was essentially sort of the kind of thought that she was putting out there. And I'm sure that interview is still around. If I can find it, I might post like a link to it down in the description box or something like that. But yeah, she found that to be so strange. And I thought about it and I was like, oh God, you're right. Now, don't get me wrong. I enjoy nudity still too, but I feel like not only have we essentially pushed women in Hollywood into this sort of box to where it's like, listen, you better strip down, or else we're either not going to make you a big star, or we're not going to give you some of the big awards. And yes, there are a few women who somehow can slip around that sort of non-stated requirement. But those women are so few and far between that it just feels like we're almost making them do it as Hollywood, and again, also as consumers. Because consumers are, once again, they're coming out and saying, oh, you appear nude, that means that you're mature. That means that you're adult. This young woman, she was a kid when we last saw her, but now she's a grown woman. And now we can take her serious. We can take her seriously as an actress because she's done this role in which she is a sexy adult woman. And I'm just like, oh God, no, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I don't like it at all. I just don't find it to be conducive for good product anymore. But again, on top of that, the last couple of years where we have gotten so many different reports of various sets, whether they are movie sets or television sets, in which directors or producers take it too far. The actresses feel uncomfortable getting nude or being in certain sort of compromising sexual positions and things of that nature. And I'm just like, no, I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it. Again, I am all for people like Shailene Woodley. She dated Aaron. She dated the football player. And she was in Divergent. That was like her big breakout role. Although she was also in The Descendants. I guess that was her breakout role with George Clooney. I'm all for her, where she sat down in a couple of interviews and she said, hey, listen, sex scenes to me are like, it feels natural to be completely nude or to at least be topless, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. So I'm going to do that. And I'm like, okay, I guess. But then also kind of no, weirdly enough. It takes me back to Vanderpump Rules, the reunion last year, season 10. So some of you might not know because you might not watch reality TV. Again, I'm assuming that I have a audience mostly of men or of people who have lied and said that they're men online. So Tom Sandoval, one of the dudes on there, he cheated on his longtime girlfriend with not much, but a younger girl. And one of the things that he cited is that he and his girlfriend, his longtime girlfriend, live-in girlfriend, they lived together, bought a house together. They weren't having as much relations, right? And the last time that they had slept together, she wore a t-shirt. And that just takes me back to what adulthood is actually like. And I'm sure that there are actually a ton of adults who are like, yeah, you know what? The last time you had sex, if sex scenes were actually portrayed in a realistic way in almost any film or television show, what you would probably see is that you would probably see adults in almost complete darkness, or you would see adults where a lot of them are like half clothed. They're covering parts of their body because they don't feel quite right about it. And no, it's not just the women covering up because maybe they don't like the way that their breasts are sagging or something like that. As his partner Ariana, she's always had body issues, so she wore a t-shirt because she didn't want him to essentially see her body because she doesn't feel right about her body. But dudes, y'all be doing the same thing. But again, dudes be doing the same thing, right? Like it's fat dudes out there who they will wear a shirt or a t-shirt over their body because they don't want, they don't want their man boobs hanging out, or they don't like their big guts, or dudes will sometimes wear socks, claim, oh, it's for the traction, when they just don't want to show their feet. Like it's very rare, or at least for most people, it seems like it's very rare that unless you are, OnlyFansing it up, it's actually very rare to be a full-on adult and have the kind of relations that we actually see on TV or in film, to where, yeah, each person is fully nude and they're comfortable showing their entire body, and they stand in front of their partner like, yes, look at me, I am, the amazing Greek god Adonis, and look at all of my muscles, and look at my manhood, and take it all in, woman. That's so rare in actual adulthood, but yet nudity is seen once again as this sort of thing that marks our maturity, and that marks a particular piece of art or entertainment's maturity. Again, women's nudity is seen as artful. Men's nudity is seen as, for the most part, it's seen as a joke. Like when dudes get naked, it's sort of to play into like a joke or to be laughed at in some way, shape, or form. Just all of the weird and different ways that we use nudity on screen, I'm just like, maybe we should just sort of cut a lot of it out. Again, I'm probably talking to a lot of fairly horny dudes and be like, no, I definitely want to see whatever young star that you are obsessed with, whatever young woman you're obsessed with. Like, oh man, I can't wait, blah blah blah, yada yada yada. But it's like, no, maybe rethink that. Maybe rethink that, because there's just no. It almost. And this is another thing. I feel like there's almost so much overstimulation when it comes to nudity. Like you can find nude stuff online all the time. Why are you so obsessed with seeing it in stuff that's supposed to have a story, that's supposed to have a plot, that's supposed to entertain you in other ways? I'm not connecting with that kind of thing anymore. And I find it interesting that maybe Gen Z also might not be connecting with that in the same, or maybe in a different way. I don't know. I just find it intriguing. I would love to see a day in which it doesn't feel like women are any longer not really forced, but also like kind of forced with like a wink, wink and a nudge. Like, hey, if you do this, there's some awards for you, or if you do this, we'll make you into a really big star. I would like to see the day in which that doesn't happen, because again, if you look around Hollywood right now, there's literally only like a handful of women that are able to still have and maintain a career that have not appeared nude on screen. And like I say, I love it when it is their choice and they feel empowered by it. But I don't like this whole thing of, yeah, I did it, but I felt weird about it. It felt weird on the set. I don't like that. I don't like that. No. I think that's all I had to say. I might cut in some things that I missed out from last year that I had said, but because I know that I had a thought in there and it was in my mind for a brief time and then it escaped out. But yeah, that was pretty much it with part 2, the nudity. That's the pervert part of Silent Perverts, to where it's just like, it seems like Hollywood, and I guess we consumers maybe think this of ourselves, to where, yeah, we just think that, unless it's got some nudity in it, unless there's a naked woman running around somewhere, it's not really adult. It's not really mature. It's not really, for a grown-up audience. I'm like, no. Weirdly enough, the whole thing is that it would weirdly feel probably more adult if there wasn't as much nudity. I don't know. That's just me. Maybe I'm just, I don't know. Anyway, I don't have a sign off. Hey everybody. So while I don't have an official sign off yet, I guess I should do the whole please like, comment, share, and if you so desire and you want to see more, subscribe. But more importantly, I will ask that you please, please, please go and purchase one of my books. They are mostly ebooks and pretty much they are all under $10. See if any of my work is actually any good, if it lives up to any of the things that I'm talking about here on my channel, specifically with the entertainment industry videos. So please go purchase my books. All of my links are down below. Thank you.